It's Russell Mendel.
Mendel, sorry. Wasn't sure how you spelled it.
Thank you. My name is Russell Mendel. I'm an organizer in New York City with Frac Action. I would like to read a statement on behalf of Claire Sandberg, our executive director. She can't be here tonight, and she has a statement to share. I want to thank Senator Krueger and Assemblyman Brian Kavanaugh for their strong leadership on this issue and for holding tonight's Speak Out. I also want to thank the Senator for co-sponsoring a ban on fracking in New York State. It is clear that hydrofracking cannot be done safely, period. No amount of regulations will protect our air, water, and the health of our families from this devastating practice. For several years, a critical area of focus in the debate on hydraulic fracturing has been potential disasters for New York City's water supply. This past July, the Department of Environmental Conservation sought to put fears to rest with a declaration that New York City's drinking water would receive special protections, with a 1,000-foot buffer zone surrounding New York City watershed. However, claims that New York City is out of the woods and no longer has a stake in this issue deserve greater scrutiny. First, the claim that New York City's water is now protected by this 1,000-foot buffer zone is not supported by the available science. The New York City Department of Environmental Protection has stated that a 7-mile buffer zone is needed to protect the delicate infrastructure of aqueducts and tunnels New York City relies on to deliver our water from the Delaware and Catskill watersheds. 1,000 feet versus 7 miles is a major difference, and DC owes it to the public to investigate this disparity. And I just want to be clear that the 1,000 feet is in regards to distance from New York City infrastructure and aqueducts. Even if fracking were prohibited within the 7-mile buffer zone, the risk of contamination from truck accidents and spills would still be enormous. The New York City DEP estimated that the amount of fracking chemicals used to hydraulically fracture just one well will contaminate an entire New York City reservoir under drought conditions. The potential for contamination of our watershed also poses serious economic consequences. Damage to the aqueducts and tunnels that deliver our water will cost billions to repair. Beyond the issue of water contamination, fracking poses severe threats to New York City's air quality and public health. Scientific reports show that airborne contaminants from gas drilling can travel up to 200 miles from the well site. With estimates of 77,000 gas wells proposed for New York State, New York City will experience major impacts to its air quality from an estimated 77 million total truck trips expected across the state, as well as hazardous chemicals like benzene, toluene, which would create a highly toxic smog that would travel to New York via jet stream. The toxic smog created from fracking contains large amounts of ultrafine particles, soot, ozone, and known carcinogens. In adults, these pollutants are linked to bladder, lung, and breast cancer, stroke, diabetes, and premature death. In children, they are linked to premature birth, asthma, cognitive deficits, and stunted lung development. Exposure to this toxic smog has been a cause of serious concern in Flower Mound, Texas, where breast cancer rates have increased dramatically in the 6 counties where drilling and production of natural gas has been the most prominent. With indications that fracking generates so much ozone that even Sublette County, Wyoming, is reported to have ozone levels as high as Los Angeles thanks to natural gas drilling. New York City cannot afford to have its air quality impacted by fracking with asthma rates already so high. Besides the clear environmental and public health risks of fracking for New York City and other obvious impacts such as potential impacts on New York City's food supply, New York City would bear a disproportionate burden of potential tax increases from increased regulatory costs and government services required to facilitate this massive industrial project, despite not sharing in any potential economic benefits created by fracking. New York City residents should reject all assertions that fracking is just an upstate issue with no relevance to downstate citizens. New York City has every reason to raise alarm, not just on the efficacy of proposed regulations, but on whether fracking is worth it for New York State at all. Thank you to the Senator and the Assemblyman.